Hi, everybody. I am Sarabeth Berk, and welcome to Becoming More Than Your Title. This is a series I've been doing where I interview really interesting people who are hybrid professionals. So, in a moment, I'll have Armando Diaz joining us today. Now, if you haven't heard about a hybrid professional before, don't worry. You're not alone. It's an idea that's been hidden and is just surfacing now in the workforce. The way that I frame this, because I'm a researcher of hybrid professionals and I write about this in my book, More Than My Title. And the way that I look at hybrid professionals is this: they are workers who blend and combine multiple identities together and work at the intersections of those different identities. This is what makes them different from a jack of all trades or an expert. They don't just have many hats or do many different things. They're actually weaving and combining and intersecting those identities together. And when they merge into that space, they're an altogether new type of professional. We actually don't even know what to call them. They're just hybrid. There's no term like director of programs that fits their hybrid identity. And what's really cool is when they're at that intersection of identities, that's their secret sauce. It's like a special blend where they bring talents together and can do things other professionals can't do the way that they do it. So it's really exciting to think about this moment where we have experts in the workforce, generalists, and hybrids, because all three of them work together to make really high-performing teams. And we need all those three types of professionals to make work work. So today I've got Armando coming up. And what I love about him, his title on LinkedIn is Professional Life Changer. I'm super curious to hear what he means by that and why he's a hybrid professional. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Armando. Armando, welcome. Good morning.
Welcome. Good morning, Sarabeth. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Sacramento, California, the capital of California, and just looking forward to talking with you.
I was as well. We've been communicating on LinkedIn. I know you've been following me and we've been sharing things. And when you agreed to be one of the stories for this series, I was like, yes, I want to hear what you have on your mind.
Absolutely. I came across your work about a year ago around this time, and this is a real honor for me. So thanks for having me.
Oh, totally. Well, let's dive in. I always start with the question, what do you do? Because that's usually how we start when we're networking. So Armando, tell us, what do you do?
Well, thank you. Yes, I consider myself an emerging hybrid, and we can talk about that and kind of flesh out what that means in my world. But I'm coming to the term of being a professional life changer, and what that means to me is the sense that my job is to listen to my students, listen to their hopes and their fears and their dreams, and try to equip them with the tools they need to get to that next place in their life, whether it's as a school counselor working with high schoolers, running my small business where I'm a private college advisor with my high school clients, or even my adult students who are themselves training to be college counselors, college advisors, starting their own business. My role is to facilitate that growth, to help them find their personal and their professional goals. And so I don't change their lives per se, but my job is to help them find that place where they can make that change.
I love this title and I love what you're doing with it, helping students at all levels of their life. Sometimes you're doing it in school or you're teaching. How did you come up with this title for yourself, Professional Life Changer? What inspired you to call yourself that?
That's a great question. Well, I really have been wrestling with the question I'm going to say to you in a moment for quite a while. When family and friends would ask me, how are my students, right? Because my whole world knows that I'm in education. I love education. I love what I do. So when I would field the question, how are my students, I would not know how to respond to that because I had three types of students. I had students within my realm of school counseling, students within the realm of my small business, and adult students within the realm of UC Berkeley Extension. So I really wrestled with that. And so what I tried to do is go inward and go not so much externally thinking, but going back in my mind of what's that common denominator that unites all three of those worlds.
Yeah.
In terms of the feeling and the internal goal that I was really looking for, and the thing that really inspired me as a person and a professional. And I'm continuing and always to be inspired by the opportunity to change someone's life and to help them find their goals. That's what that's why I get up out of bed every day. That's how I make my money. That's how I support my family. So I really came to that place by going in versus outward, and found that's the ground. As I kicked around and did all my note taking and explored, that was the term that I always came back to that really resonated with me.
That you're truly a life changer. I love that. I talk often with people about figuring out what their true professional identity is. And so I'm curious, what identity words were you using to describe yourself prior to realizing you are a life changer? What were you using before?
Well, I think being in the realm of education, you always sort of just work within the paradigm that you're given, which is you're part of a system. You know, you're and as most people do, you just sort of identify by the label of your field. So I'm a counselor. I'm my master's in school counseling. I am an instructor through UC Berkeley Extension in their college advising certificate program. And then I started my own small business, so I consider myself to be an entrepreneur. And so some of those made a lot of sense, but that entrepreneur part I really struggled with, because you typically don't, as a lifelong educator, I've been in the field for over 20 years, you don't associate being an entrepreneur with being in education all the time. You know, You're just sort of, you're following the dictums of your administrative team or your school board or the vision for your school. You don't always see yourself as going rogue with that, you know. So I think those three terms, you know, counselor, instructor, entrepreneur, were the hooks that I was trying to somehow unite. And I think the term professional life changer really helped find where those have common ground.
I love this, because you just nailed what I typically use as a Venn diagram framework, right? You gave us your three primary professional identities, but who you are when those combine and intersect is the professional life changer. And you said you were looking for a term that carried across all of these, and the life changer was what resonated for you the most. And that just feels powerful. I mean, when you say it out loud, how do you feel about that?
It's empowering because I feel that I have a basis by which to unite these identities. I'm relatively new to it. I really just put it out there in the last few months, and for these upcoming workshops that I'm doing. So I'll have to explain myself a little bit, but it's fun. I think people are intrigued by what that means for them, you know. But at the same time, it's a little scary, you know, when you're taking on when you're, again, I consider myself to be more of an emerging hybrid. Maybe in a few years from now, I'll have really, you know, fleshed it out. But it's a little scary in a way, because you're you know, in these times when you know you need to you know, make a salary and sort of stand on your own 2 feet and get through this horrible pandemic, you don't want to be too crazy, you know. So you want to make sure that you're you know, you're handling your business as a professional. And to say that and not know exactly what it means is sometimes a little scary. But I feel like as I grow into it and I do my own Venn diagrams, I sort of understand how they intersect. And in some ways, they intersect a great deal, and they've been intersecting for many years. In other ways, they're just kind of intersecting, but maybe in a more interpersonal way.
So many places I want to go with this conversation, but let's start back with this concept of hybridity and how you think about your own hybridity, because you said you're in an emerging stage. People that have read my book know I talk about being established versus emerging, because it's sort of like a growth and development. So how are you thinking about your own hybridity, and what does that mean to you?
In one way, I think about it a great deal the way, and I'm going to use that sort of Venn diagram image because I think it's very useful for me. It's been very useful for me. The merging of my world as a counselor and an instructor has been very empowering, and I think it's led to both worlds benefiting, but specifically my current school site. To kind of do a little bit of background, I taught this certificate course on campus for 1 year back in 2017, and with the goal of moving these two advising courses from on the ground to online. And so I worked with a colleague who did a lot of the visionary work I was consulting, but I saw a class go from in the classroom to online, which at the time I thought was great. It was a wonderful adventure, but I didn't think a whole lot of it. Well, flash forward to last year, right, when everything had to go online. And so it was incredibly empowering to know how to do that.
Yeah.
We were going through a bit of an administrative turnover, and there was really only one standing administrator who didn't know a lot about this world when the schools needed to decide how to keep things going, right? So it was incredibly empowering to kind of go, I kind of know what to do, and to be dialed into the world of colleges, because really the answer for what was happening for some schools was found at the collegiate level in terms of doing this sort of hybrid mix, and some students being on campus and some students being home. That wasn't something that a lot of K through 12 schools really had to do.
Right.
That was something that was happening at the collegiate level, and I had a direct pipeline to that.
Right.
So it was incredibly empowering to play a role in kind of raising my hand again, be a little bit afraid, going like, I'm not used to merging these worlds a whole lot. But a few months later, there I was telling everybody I was an instructor at Berkeley, and here's how we do it, and here's what I did, and so that aspect was I like to think it really shaped the direction of my current school and helped us execute this year by doing that. So it's been a really wonderful journey,
What I'm hearing in this moment that you're sharing is you coming more to life, coming more into your full self, and sharing parts of yourself in your schoolwork that they didn't maybe know about you prior. And suddenly that became such an asset as you revealed that. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely. I had, sort of fairly compartmentalized those worlds. I was teaching on Sundays, and then when the class went online, I was teaching on my own time on weekends, and it didn't have a lot of carryover, but there were, again, the aspect of knowing that skill, which carried over into both worlds, was incredibly beneficial, because again, not a lot of people really knew how to do that, and the implications of that. And I think in an interesting way, I was able to kind of ring the alarm a little early, because I was seeing, again, this is going to last spring, what was happening at the collegiate level. And I was like, guys, we got a problem, and here's how colleges are doing it. Here's the best way to solve the dilemma of online learning, not that it was ever really solved, but I was able to work with the group to forge that path, and then came an interesting aspect of training teachers on how to do that. And I'm a counselor, so I'm not necessarily an administrator. I'm not the one that gets up and says, okay, everybody, here's what you're supposed to do. But there I was a few months later doing all these videos and teaching people how to use Zoom. Can you believe that? Like, they're like, what's Zoom? Right?
There's so much crossing over, I'm hearing.
Absolutely. It was incredibly invigorating time, which I know you talk about a great deal in your book.
Yeah, I mean, hybrids are people that are boundary spanners across so many different things. It can be disciplines, domains, industries. I'm just hearing you crossing and combining in technology and learning, in your teaching, and the higher ed K-12 connections. So that is truly you embracing your hybridity without realizing it.
Yeah, and really, it's funny you say without realizing is when the year started, and again, as a counselor, my job, we tend to be high awareness, self-awareness, low extroversion, right? I just want to be in my office, a lot of the times. But the challenge was, okay, how do I, because I deal with ninth graders, and how do I reach out to hundreds of ninth graders and hundreds of parents in a digital format and still have that same level of intimacy and connection, right? For them to see you, hear you, see you, and know you that way. And one of the very first things I said to myself, oh, just make a video. I'll just do videos. I'll use Loom, right? I'll just record videos. And that was so groundbreaking at my site. The idea that, oh, what? You're going to be making, oh, yeah, you just click, 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 and you talk, and click, 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 and you send it out, But that wasn't something that I would have dared touch if it weren't for my other worlds, where that was very commonplace, a very commonplace skill, but also mentality. Like, you want your people to be heard and seen by you online, which as counselors go, we close our door and then our magic begins, but we really needed to do that in a different way. So it was, it was very unexpected for even me to go, oh, you guys are afraid of that? That's not too bad, where even me a few years ago would have been like, no, there's no way I'm doing that. So it's very unexpected.
You're echoing so many of the things I write about in the book. Like, hybrids are people that see things other people don't see, and you're doing things that you take for granted, you don't realize as a hybrid part of you. And then now it's coming into your awareness, and you're able to share it and talk about it differently. So this is brilliant, all the stories and examples you're giving. Talk a little bit more about, there was some fear, I think you had mentioned to me earlier, of letting go or becoming this hybrid. Can you explain that more?
Sure. There's a lot of, there's a lot of fear and anxiety right now, as you know. I think in my world, I've often said that the pandemic has taken everyone's baseline level of anxiety and just turned it up a couple notches.
Oh, yes.
So, right. So if you're naturally resting at a 3, maybe you're at a 5, or if you're naturally at a 5, you're at a 7, or whatever that might be. So there's a lot of things that are just sort of anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety, and it's a time to be afraid a little bit about how things are going to pan out. But I think it's a healthy fear. I think one of the ones that I would again not only hit on the idea of going solo as an educator, because again, you're used to being one who executes someone else's larger vision, and when it doesn't go well, then you're not necessarily accountable to it, But when you start your own business and you speak on your skill set and it's on you, that's a little scary. But I think it's what one aspect that mentioned earlier that you continue to work through as you go through the merging of these different identities. But I also think being a little bit afraid of exactly what the boundaries are of being a hybrid. If you look at the screen has boundaries. Well, am I pushing the boundary too much where my main employer doesn't like it, or am I not pushing it enough? Can I explore other areas that my own fear is the only thing that's keeping me back? So I think that aspect is something that I'm challenged with all the time. Just what are the boundaries of being a hybrid and merging these worlds together?
Are you learning any lessons that you care to share, or are you still in the process?
I think I'm still in the process, but yet without a doubt, I think being transparent is probably the biggest lesson. I'll tell you one story that happened to me this past fall. It was a real honor, but I was given the Most Inspirational Instructor Award for 2020 through Extension, and a couple other colleagues. Yeah, thank you. It was wonderful. I was just sort of like, I'm not used to getting an instructor award, but I'm technically a counselor,
Right.
But it was wonderful. And, but yeah, I think I said to myself, I need to be transparent here, because I had to give a presentation. I had to accept the award and give a little speech. And it happened to be toward the tail end of one of my school days, and so I let my administration and my HR department know that I was going to be missing a little bit of time. And I showed them the award, and they knew that I received it. And so I think that helped me embrace the duality more when I knew that I was transparent about what was happening. And ultimately they all know that the role that I played through Berkeley was a key part in the development of the model that we follow. So I think
Mm.
it was empowering and validating the more I was transparent about it. And I think it's been, pretty good since then. But, again, you just never know, how
Yeah.
the boundaries of the new world, next year we seem to be moving out of this into a normal, so that'll be another challenge to see how those worlds merge at that point.
Yeah, this idea of boundaries is a really good one because you're
Yes.
redefining yourself, which means you have to look at what the old boundaries were and question them and then say, but what if those didn't exist? Then where does that lead me, or where else can I go? And then who am I without those boundaries? So it's a ton of metacognition and reflection, but it sounds like you're investigating and testing, and I'm really pleased with how you've been learning. It sounds some wonderful ways these things are really connecting and making you more successful.
Yes, it's interesting because it's not just that these multiple roles connect in a very tangible way, like the skill of Zoom and the skill of Loom those are some very concrete, tangible skill sets that make you a better professional, make all your worlds better. I can really speak to that. But it's also a connecting of mindsets and attitudes as well. So I can speak to, for example, one of the circles in my Venn diagram is my small business and learning how to make a website and learning how to create your own design and learning how to create a business plan and execute a business plan. I still am not sure how that's going to fit my other worlds.
Sure.
There's not a lot of need for school counselors to make a website. There is some to some degree, but I'm still feeling my way through that.
Yeah.
But it's the mindset of having more confidence in myself and quite frankly, having a higher sense of esteem for my personal and professional being. If it's time to do a video or get on stage, I'm ready. I'm ready at a drop of a hat. And yesterday I did a 20-minute webinar for my parents on getting ready for final exams, and just boom, banged it out. So it's also a incorporating of mental, a way of thinking about yourself too. So it may not necessarily be translatable in a real tangible way, but having a more open mindset, not seeing a challenge as a challenge, but see it as an opportunity. Maybe, I said counselors tend to be low extroversion. It's helping me develop a stronger sense of extroversion, which has been nice too. So there's more than just one way to have those worlds combined.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. So a couple of things that I just want to highlight. One is that you mentioned the mindset. And as you're understanding your own professional identity and your hybridity, it is shifting your self-concept, which is the mindset part of this, right? How you see yourself and the way you talk about yourself, those stories of who you are. So I can definitely see that shifting for you. And then mentioning this notion of the skills, right? Because you said, I'm learning how to build a website, but I don't know what that means with my Venn diagram or my intersections. Well, those, in my mind, are your secondary or tertiary identities. Armando, the website designer, may not be part of your hybridity. There are identities that go beyond the ones that are the core that make us hybrids. And those identities come in and out, but they're not used as frequently, and they may or may not define us. So your hybridity is based on the ones that are truly inextricably linked, and they really make up the core of you, and they're inseparable. So that just might be another way to think about it. There's a question on my mind I really want to get to. Because you work with students in high school and you're teaching them and you're working with them in your private practice, how are you using this concept of being a hybrid professional in your counseling work, in your instructing? Are you seeing this as a tool that is helping you counsel them? Or I'm just wondering how this is coming through in your work.
Yeah, definitely in the realm of my adult students who are taking this certificate program. They're current counselors, or they may be in other fields. Then they're wanting to learn the skill set of college admissions advising and learn it and apply it to their current site or start their own business.
Okay.
And they really look to the instructor as me, as someone who's been there and has done that, and not only provides the skill set, but has some wisdom along the way, So I'll often exchange stories and leave names out and be sort of, confidential, but exchange, war stories and battle stories and things that are happening right now. And one thing I would tell them is I want to teach you some skills that you could use the next day in your office, and I think they really come to really appreciate that, in the world. Sorry.
Do you tell them about hybridity as one of those tools? I'm just wondering.
Not a lot yet. I think that's an area that as I grow and start to understand what that means, I will translate that over, because in many ways, Sarabeth, they are themselves going through that journey. And as I go through it, I could say, wow, this person, one of my students is a graphic designer or has been in a Fortune 500 company, and now they want to work with high school students. So they're themselves going through that hybrid journey. You know? And so I think as I learn more about where I'm going, I can definitely see that in my own adult students and say, you're becoming a hybrid, and introduce those kinds of things. I'd love to have you as a guest speaker, Sarabeth.
Well, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're connected.
Yeah.
What else would you want people to know as a takeaway that you are learning about being a hybrid professional, or that you thought maybe was interesting from the book? Because I know you read the book more than my title. Just what are some of these big takeaways that you're having around hybridity?
Absolutely. I think the not seeing fear is a bad thing, and seeing the opportunity. Maybe you don't know where it's going to take you, but it's a wonderful opportunity to see where it leads. This journey all began. It began in multiple stages, but I'll tell two quick stories.
Okay.
The day that I was graduating from teacher training school, before the ceremony, I went to my professor's office to drop off some books. This was to become a teacher. Okay. On the top of a stack of books at her desk was a book that said Introduction to Counseling. I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. So I took it, and that planted the seed to become a counselor, literally on the day that I was finished becoming a teacher in training. So that seed was always there. And then flash forward many years later, I said to myself, I really just miss teaching, and I would love to see what it's like to teach at the collegiate level or work with adults. So I called up an old professor, and many months and years later, I was able to take that role. And I think there was definitely fear, but there was also a sense of, wow, let's just be open. Let's lead with yes. Let's see where this takes you, And it's taking me to have this wonderful conversation with you and have my own small business and do those kinds of things. So I think what I would tell people is definitely embrace the full range of emotions that you feel during this time, but also see them as opportunities, and know that there's people out there who are a few steps in front of you. And it is a little scary, but let the process take its course. Say yes. Say, I don't know this, but let me learn more about it. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you find yourself treading in the ground of hybrid professionalism, for sure.
Right. Look at where you ended up.
Absolutely.
I love that, just curiosity, because I think that carries over to curiosity about self. And we are constantly growing and developing, and our careers are spanning 50 years. Like, people are just working so much later in life because the mortality age is so much later. And so this notion that we're not going to be the same professional we were in our 20s and 30s and 40s, we have to be able to keep questioning and redefining ourselves. Armando, my last question is, when you learned about this concept of hybrid professional identity, can you take me back to that moment? What came up for you? What thoughts were running through your head?
It was at first a bit of a shock, as I was like, oh, wow, somebody, and I am naturally curious. So I immediately wanted to learn more about what this means, because I think you mentioned there's hybrid cars, there's hybrid foods, there's all these hybrid things. And that was like, wow, there are hybrid professionals, But it was very, so it was like, wow, okay, I'm not alone, and this is definitely a recurring theme in your work. But it was also a relief because I knew that there were people out there who were treading in this world and of a little bit uncertainty that can talk about what it's like as well. And I'm a big believer in following your mentor. And I think that's taken me very far to see the wisdom in other people's experience and learn from it. So it was very validating, and it was a little bit of oh wow, okay, yeah, and able to sort of tread forward despite not knowing exactly where it was going to lead you. So it was and it continues to be a wonderful experience to learn about your own hybridity and then tell others about their own, even if they don't see it.
Yeah, that touches my heart. I think that has been one reason I wanted to do these LinkedIn Lives, is to let people like you share what this work means to you, why it's been sort of monumental in your own self-discovery. And just that comment you said about, I'm not alone. You know, there are other people out there like me. And here's a term for it. People have been missing the right language and struggling to use all these other things like, I'm a multi-potentialite or multi-hyphen. Like, I don't know what else to say. And truthfully, I think there's something bigger happening, which is the hybrid.
There is.
Armando, where can people find you if they want to follow you? I know you're on LinkedIn. Want to tell us about your website?
Absolutely. Well, I do run a small business of a private college counseling at firstlightcollegeadvising.com. So you could find me on my website. I also do a lot of work with UC Berkeley Extension, continuing to teach their courses. And I'll be giving a couple of workshops in June on training adults how to start their own private practice.
Nice.
So you can find me through Berkeley Extension, and you can attend some of those websites and learn what it's like to start your own business. And then just like all of the people you've talked to, Sarabeth, just when you feel like you know, and that's how I came across your work. I just reached out to you and said, hey, this is really interesting what you're exploring. Just talk to people and learn about their journey, and just create your own little network of people who support each other, and allow them to explore that professional landscape the way that as a counselor I allow my clients to explore an emotional landscape. Just see where it takes you, see where those thoughts, there's no right or wrong, see where all these views take you, and just be led by the opportunity of this. So I would say find people that support you as you're exploring your professional landscape, and see where that takes you. And I think that's real key and moving into this world. So.
Oh, that was beautifully said. I love that, you're encouraging people to follow role models. And I think you've been an amazing role model today about your own exploration. Thank you for sharing so much, all the vulnerability, the backstories, the confusion, the fear. I think there's a lot of great moments people will resonate with. And if people are interested in learning about being more than their title, come to morethanmytitle.com. There's a book called More Than My Title, which explains hybrid professionals. Armando, thank you. This was a huge pleasure for me. I hope we get to talk again.
Thank you. Keep leading the charge, Sarabeth.
I will. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.